And joining us now in the studio are the Mainse men from the front of the Crossroads Center. Welcome, guys.
And
Dad,
it didn't rain on us. It was kind of threatening a little bit, but wasn't that a fun video to see the highlights of your trips? Now you're going to be on with us later toward the end of July, and we're going to have a lot of the footage because you did some interviews along the way there with the camera crew.
Okay.
And you've got a special shirt on there. What's that?
I do. There it is. Read it.
Victory Riders, Lakeland, Florida.
Yeah, we had about 50 bikers that escorted us out. Pastor Blackburn of the Victory Church was on a bike, and Mike and Linda. It was Linda's birthday that day. Howard, they kind of pulled it together, and that was a really special trip. You know, they say there's no fool like an old fool. Well, I qualify for that.
Dad, you make friends wherever you go, and you're not ashamed or backward about sharing the love of Jesus with people as well.
Well, the most important thing I did on the entire trip, and maybe it was the reason why I got this crazy idea, may have been from the Lord, because in Fort Wayne, Indiana, I was out in the morning fairly early in front of the hotel where I stayed, and I was cleaning my bike. We'd been in a rainstorm, you know, the day before, and it got kind of a bit yucky. I like a clean bike, and a lady came over to me and she says, "I have 3 sons, all of whom have motorcycles." And I said, do you think that's dangerous? Yes, she said, "I worry about them." I said, would they be ready to meet the Lord? Do they have the assurance for heaven in their hearts if something were to happen? She says, "No, I don't think so." And I said, "Well, do you know?" Well, she said, "I go to church once in a while." And then I said, "But do you know that if something, you know, should take place in your life, you'd go to heaven?" "No, I don't." And I had the privilege of leading this precious lady to Christ. And then on the Saturday's blog, last Saturday, I told her, I gave her one of my little blog cards, and I told her that I'd put the way of salvation, which she could read to her sons, either individually or bring them all together, to lead them to the assurance that if anything were to happen, they have a peace. I had a total peace. In fact, I was a little disappointed back the middle of March I didn't get to see Jesus. You know, a couple of the other guys that I was taking treatment with at the Juravinsky Cancer Center, they've already checked out.
Because that was two years ago. You were given 2 years to live.
That's right.
And so, but we came through March. You're still here. You're stronger than you have been in the last
few years. If it was a year ago, I'd be sitting down already. I couldn't even stand up for the hymns.
Speaking of sitting down,
go ahead.
Let's have a seat.
I couldn't stand up for the hymns in church. I would use that as an excuse, and my brothers-in-law, like one brother-in-law, I'd lost over 80 pounds, and I was just a bag of bones. One brother-in-law said, "David, I've seen better legs hanging out of a nest." Another brother-in-law,
only a brother-in-law could say something like that.
Another brother-in-law, Norma Jean's brothers, another brother-in-law said I was a little old man just sitting in the corner waiting to die last October. But all the prayers of God's people came together, and the effectiveness. I mean, you know, okay, so I had chemo, but over a year ago now, the Department of Health of Ontario cut off the chemo treatment because we were not showing any progress, and why spend taxpayer dollars, you know, in our health care here in Ontario when it's not proving to do me any good. So they cut that off. Now I was still going to see Dr. Tomlinson in Oakville at the Institute of Natural Health Technologies, Oakville. Okay, got it. And also Dr. Fred Huey. In fact, I had a friend who would call me up several times and he'd say, "David, so you want to die, eh?" Canadian vocabulary there. "You want to die, eh?" Actually, he's of Italian extraction, a tiny accent. "You want to die?" No, not really. I said, "Well, then you got to go to Dr. Huey." And he's an MD, University of Toronto. Thanks, Ron. and also then he went to study for a couple of years in Beijing, in China. And so he's doing alternative medicines. And so I was taking something called chelation there as well. So to me, the prayers of God's people, it's like King Hezekiah in the Bible. Isaiah came to King Hezekiah and says, I've just heard from the Lord. And he said, "King Hezekiah, you're going to die of this illness that you have." And Hezekiah turned his face to the ground, to the wall, began to cry out to God. Then he went into the temple and prayed a more formal prayer in the temple in Jerusalem. And then God spoke to Isaiah, said, go back and tell King Hezekiah, I'm going to give him 15 years. But put a poultice on the infection. Okay? So that was a combination of God and medicine. So I think that's what I've had. And I said to the oncologist, Dr. Foley at the Giravinci Cancer Center, I said, now when I'm well, to whom do I give the credit, you or God? He said, both of us.
Well, Dad, it's wonderful for us, for our family, and for our viewers to see how well you're doing and the strength that has come back into you, and just kind of a new vision for doing new things.
I'm not hanging on to life, okay? Like white knuckle, hang on. I got to live. God's free to take me home. In fact, down in Florida, they don't have a helmet law. I mean, you can commit suicide down there. You're free to do it.
No,
on a motorcycle.
Several family members have said to you, wear that helmet when you're in Florida. But speaking of last fall, the family, we did notice, Dad, the decline in your health, and we were praying for you. We were praying with you. We all knew that you were just as excited to see Jesus as ever, and looking forward to that. But as a family, we gathered around and we were praying for you and just, praying that God would give you many more years with us. And so we're thrilled that God is saying yes.
When I passed that middle of March date with the 2-year prediction, and a couple of those that were in treatment had already checked out, but at first there was a little wave of disappointment, because I really thought I was going to get to see Jesus. My mom, my dad, your dad, and your mom. Yeah. Just before she died, her brother Frank, who's a Salvation Army officer, he and his mom had a dance. She stood on his boots, and they kind of did a little dance together with your mom standing on his shoes and just celebrating that they knew she was going to be with Jesus any minute. So it's a great thing to have that hope, and if anybody does not have that assurance, that's a scary thing. There's a phone number on the screen from time to time, and I would really urge you to call if you don't know that you're ready, to die. Benjamin Franklin, I've been reading about American heroes lately because we spend the winters down there in Florida, and Benjamin Franklin was asked, are you ready to meet God? He said, that's not my concern. Is God ready to meet me? He said. So think about that one. Yeah. But how about it? Are you ready? Are you ready to meet God? There's only one way you can stand before God and hold your head up, and with assurance, with confidence, with hope, and that is because of the cross of Jesus. He took everything that would bar you from heaven. He took it as he suffered for you, the very pangs of hell, so to speak, hell on earth and hell beyond earth. He took it into himself because of God so loving the world that he gave his only begotten Son, the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ. This last Sunday I was preaching on Father's Day Church at the Queensway, 2 services, 9:30 and 11:11. And I read today's reading. I read ahead. I often do that in the blog reading. We're in the Gospel of Matthew. We've started again, the second time through Matthew, then back to Genesis, and then Mark, and then back to Exodus, and so on. So today's reading is the reading from which I read on Sunday morning as texts, and it was the 18th chapter of Matthew today. And 4 times Jesus speaks of his Father. There's a great religion in the world today that has 99 names for God, and one of them is not Father. One of them is not Father. And their official doctrine is God has no Son. Well, that's not the same God that I serve and worship. I serve someone that the Scriptures call the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ. And this is a tremendous difference. He sheds his love in our hearts. Now, I know in the Middle Ages, the Crusaders, that was a horrible blot on Christianity. And what happened is that the fanatical people, the kind that are coming down toward Baghdad right now, they had taken over the Christian countries in North Africa and the Middle East by war. By war. Subterfuge, first of all, then by war. And so the Europeans, even the Pope, responded to that aggression, if you will, in the same way. Whereas in the early church with the Romans, the Christians didn't respond that way. The lions attacked them in Rome, in the arena, and they simply went out praising God. And that's why, Rome, by and large, turned to Christ. There's a huge difference. When Jesus truly lives in your life, when it's not a religion, but it's a relationship with Jesus that you can have right now. So call a number on the screen. Please don't delay. Talk to somebody. Pray with somebody. Get that hope and that assurance that you're ready to meet God.